So I guess the title would be "The Lie Continues," and two engines are safer than three or four, they say. But is it true? Well, their argument is that two engines are less likely to have anything goes wrong than with four, because with four engines, then you know there are more things to go wrong. Well, it is true, but it is true from the airline's profit margin is concerned. You see, in airlines they got something called a dispatch rate. So your airplanes obviously cannot be dispatched, i.e., cannot be sent on a mission or go fly um, and go on a trip and take people if everything you need is working properly, and one of those things will be an engine. So if you got two engines, your dispatch rate is essentially doubled. So it's really great for the airlines, but it is safer in respect of uh, staying in the sky. No, the reason being is because when they say, again, this is a deception, and whether intentional or unintentional, but it's one of those lies and errors that perpetuates, and people recalibrate themselves and think that is the compass, the calibration. It isn't, because when you say something goes wrong, well, not everything is the same. You got three engines or four engines. When something goes wrong, means one engine goes out. You still got 2/3 or 3/4 of the propulsion um, going, and it's not really an event, especially if you got four engines. I mean, nowadays obviously there has been essentially only three engine airplanes, major, or four, but primarily two three engine wide body airplane, long range wide body airplanes in service, and those has been totally out of essentially totally out of passenger service since the mid 80s, maybe even earlier. So nowadays it's either two or four engines. Well, even without technical or mathematical um, knowledge or understanding at all, assuming you're flying in the air, especially over mountains or over oceans, you got two engines, one of them went out. How are you going to feel? You know, your ability to not crash into the have to wait for the other airplane to go fly. So, um, oh, that airplane is loud. Again, if you got, if you're a passenger or even a pilot, or even people on the ground, you're over a mountain or you're over the ocean. You got two engines, and you have one of the engines failed. And how are you going to feel? That one engine is the only engine that keeps you from crashing into. In fact, if you're over mountains, it may not even be able to keep you from crashing into the mountain. Ocean, yeah, because if you got one engine, you're likely to not be able to maintain the altitude. So you gotta descend. And so if you're over mountain ranges, well, you know you're not going to fly far enough to when you descend, you don't have enough. I mean, you got mountains as far as your eyes can see. So how do you say you don't have enough? You don't fly far enough before you descend to hit the mountains. Over the water, yeah, you can fly lower, but the air will be rougher. Um, you're flying 30 something thousand feet, you could be smooth air. You descend to something like 20 or 1,000 feet, you could be in thunderstorms and weather and all kinds of stuff. And so more things are going to go on. So as far as you being the person, literally your life is concerned, is it okay? Is it safer? Is it better to have two engines? And the answer, obviously, to me, I guess to most sane people, is no. You got four engines, one of them goes wrong. Now, the other thing is that if you got you've got two engines, one engine goes out. It is an emergency. You have to declare emergency because it is by definition an emergency. Now, I don't know about four engines, but I don't think that if you got four engines, one of them went out, you have to declare emergency. I think it's up to the captain or the pilot. So yeah, you got four engines. You got one engine went out. You're over the ocean. Um, you may have to descend a little bit. Maybe you don't, because you're already quite light. You already burn off the fuel and all that. 75% power is, it's more than what you need normally for cruising. So you might not even need to descend. So please, some of your 747 pilots or three-engine airplane pilots, please chip in. I know 3 engines you have to go down, probably. 4, I don't know. And in any case, you may not need to declare emergency. You just keep on flying. I mean, don't forget, something like 747, they actually have a hard point on each of the wings inboard of the inboard engine, between the inboard engine and the fuselage. They actually have a hard point that you can hang an extra engine for transport. To ferry a new engine or bad engine for repair and stuff like that. And they fly a normal operation with passengers like that. So people talk about, there's drag and all that. No, they don't care about that. I mean, there's so much power with these 4 engines. They don't care if one engine goes out, they're free going. The air just flowing, the thing is just windmilling. There's very little resistance. You just keep flying. And I can tell you from second-hand personal knowledge, there are a lot of people, military people, go to war in transport airplanes, 4 engines. They get hit with missiles. I wouldn't say all the time, but it is not like, oh wow, it's like the only case. It's not the only case. I mean, it does happen. And because they're slow, they generate enough heat, they can't evade. They can jam, but they can't physically yank and bank and fly in a pattern to evade missiles like a fighter jet can. So they often get hit. And I know there are cases that people flying 4-engine airplanes, where there's propeller, especially propeller, because they're slower. I mean, not that much slower. They're fast, but not a little bit slower than jet airplanes, and they also fly a little bit lower. So they get hit by enemy, surface-to-air, air-to-air missiles, and they'll bang, and especially when it's outboard and the engine goes out, they turn it off. And I know cases that they lost 2 engines from enemy fire. They already did the mission. I think probably they dumped it low, or maybe not, but no worries. They just shut it down and complete the mission or land immediately. But they're not panicking or anything like that. They just shut it down and keep flying. And literally, I mean, I don't mean just like exaggeration. They literally just shut the engine down, check go through the checklist, get the airplane flying straight and level, get out of Dodge as soon as possible, and just have coffee. That's all there is to it. You have 2 engines. You have an emergency. You're not going to be having coffee. So, as far as I can see, this whole 2-engine is better than 4 engines. Yes, it's better for the profit margin for the airlines and the manufacturers. It burns a hell of a lot less fuel than 4 engines, because um, people don't realize these jet engines have enormous amounts of power. So even when they're just idling on the ground, just because it's running and at the absolute minimum power to keep them running, they're burning enormous amounts of fuel. And so it's the cost of just keeping it running. Um, Otherwise, the efficiencies are quite high, and also because the speed of airlines flying these days, um, they benefit from having a larger diameter fan in the front. So by having two engines, they can have two more powerful engines than four less powerful engines. And so the two-engine airplanes have larger diameter fans and generally larger diameter everything. And at that speed and altitude, that increase in diameter, I wouldn't get into the physics of it, but the increase of diameter improves the fuel efficiency by a very significant margin. Um, of course, that would not be true if they go faster, like a fighter jet, supersonic. Then, so there's a point. Then you have to, even with commercial airlines, it's not like there's no limit how far you can make it larger diameter. I mean, there's a limit, but so far they have not quite exceed or reached that limit yet. So again, the efficiency of there are many reasons why there's a lot of places where they can gain a lot of efficiencies from going from four to two engines. So the fuel burn and the dispatch rate works in so huge of a favor for the airlines, and the sales, the selling point from manufacturers airlines is so huge that essentially, as a profit-making organization is concerned, um, it it makes four-engine airplanes obsolete. That is, if you discount the potential lawsuits and insurance pay insurance payout. Excuse me. But so far, they figured out that they're so big and powerful. And you've seen Boeing and all that. They can't be sued. In fact, even with criminal prosecution, they got away from hundreds of people dying. They are in just to you can look it up, just to mention that they have um, a deferred prosecution from the 73 Max, 737 Max crashes. That there is every criminal evidence to show that they have committed criminal acts, and also the passengers of some of the 737 Max flights were the ones that with the door plug that fell out. The FBI actually have distributed documents to them and say that they, I think, yeah, their flight or Boeing or that is being investigated for criminal activity. So yeah, they're being notified, the passengers. Um, but anyway, so what I'm saying is that they figured out they're so big and powerful, they can get away with literally, okay, I'll be careful to say murder, but literally from people dying. And um, and also they figured out, it's cheaper and insurance and all that. But if they keep on doing that, and the insurance find that they can't profitably insure airlines and manufacturers that keep on going down, and people dying by about 250 to 400 people a go or per crash, then yeah, then the two engine um, the two engine advantages, the profit advantage of the two engines get diminished a little bit. But nevertheless, I think even that, the fuel burn saving, because from what I heard, is that most of the cost of an operation is fuel burn. So the fuel consumption um, of these two-engine airplanes still winning over. Anyway, my point is that as far as I'm concerned, that they're telling you the two engine is better and safer, for to fly is a lie, because it's safer and better for the profit margins of the operators. There's a higher dispatch rate, and there's a much bigger profit margin because of the fuel savings. But as far as your passenger, absolutely not, because I didn't touch on that. Yeah, as I said, that yeah, there are less to go wrong, but it's a different kinds of things go wrong. You got 4 engines, one engine goes out or broke. You got 3 engines. You can operate the flight normally and continue without, I believe, without declaring emergency. 2, I think you still might have an option. 2 engine airplanes, 1 engine goes out. You are by definition having an emergency, and you have to declare it. And that is the only engine that keeps you from dying if you are in places where you can't land. So, no. In fact, Richard Branson, the head of the founder and head of the Virgin Empire, Virgin Atlantic, when Boeing first came out with the 2 engines, transoceanic big airplane, the 777, and pitched about the fuel saving and all that, he refused to buy the 777 and actually went to buy the Airbus A340 and continued to operate the 747s, because he said his passengers prefer 4 engines when they are flying over the ocean. It's 100% correct. So there are people who operate airlines that not only have the correct understanding of truth and reality, but they have, Richard Branson, Virgin Atlantic, had the morality and decency that to say no, despite the profit margin, huge profit margin increase and a huge increase in dispatch rate and all that. So anyway, so that's my take, is that I would say that I would not fall for the lies that 2 engines better than 4. Absolutely no. If I were to be a passenger or pilot flying on an airplane, 4 is better. 4 is enough, and it's better. I don't need 5, 6, like a B-52 that has 8. I think that's excessive, but again, they are, nuclear bombers. So I guess the Air Force has a lot of reasons, and many reasons. But one of them probably they think, well, we're carrying something as important as a nuclear weapon, and we want to do everything to make sure that nothing fails. So they say, well, we'll keep the 8 engines. Just on a side note, the original reason for the 8 engines for the 1952, for the B-52, because it was the 1950s technology. They did not have engines powerful enough to do that sort of things, so they needed 8 of them to power the B-52. Nowadays, you can replace, as far as the power needed is concerned, you can replace all 8 of those engines with 2. Let me see. Can you do it with 1? No, not quite yet, but 2 definitely. And you can definitely replace the 4 engines on the 747 with 2. They're that powerful these days. But I will do another episode. Stay tuned. Is that there's a lot of people talk about building a 2-engine 747 and saying how there's so much advantage in savings and weight and all that. But I would discuss in another episode. So again, stay tuned. Why that is not the case. Is not a pure benefit. In fact, I think the gain for very large airplanes, I think probably not a 747, definitely something like the 500 passengers and up, like A380, 4 engines is actually is most likely to be more efficient than 2. So if you guys are curious and you want to hear that, please give me the support, likes and comments, subscribe. and I would definitely do that episode. Thank you. Again, um, so anyway, this episode is about the general uh, ethical things and it's about the truth and all that. It's not about the technical parts of flying. Um, so again, thank you. If you want to know about why that four engine will be a better way for much bigger airplanes like the A380s or a bigger 747 like a fully double deck 747. Yeah, give me subscribe, comment, and I'll do that. Thanks very much for watching. That's all for now. Bye.